Hey, and welcome back to another video of our Sprite Creation series using Blender for our 2D Java game. In today's video, we are going to write a script that will render out all of our frames for us and then put them together into Spritesheets. And I know that there are ways of doing this. Like, Blender doesn't have a really good way of doing it. You can render out frames, several frames, into images, but you would have to rotate the guy yourself each time, and then you would have to use GIMP or some photo editing software to put them together manually into a sprite sheet. GIMP has a plugin, but still, it's such a hassle when we can just write a script that will do this for us. So we're going to do that today. And in order to do it, you first have to install Pillow, a plugin to Python. You need to install that into the version of Python that your Blender is running. Blender comes bundled with its own Python executable, I guess. So there are binary files inside of your Blender installation folder. And I will post a link to a post that explains how to install it. So you need to install it, and after that you need to restart Blender so that it loads in this Pillow plugin. But after that, you're good to go. So come back here once you've installed Pillow and let's get to it. So the first thing I want to do is actually inside of our scene here, I want to add an object. Let's add a circle. Press S and scale it up. And I want to call my circle, if you go to this object tab, I want to call it rotator. Right, so after that, we can take the armature, shift click our rotator, press Ctrl P, and parent to object, keep transform. So what I want to do with this rotator, if you press R, press Z to lock it, I want to be able to rotate our guy. And the reason that I do it this way is because you could have had many different objects, and then you can parent all of them to this rotator and they'll all get rotated. So programmatically, we are going to rotate it a certain amount of degrees and then render out the entire animation and then rotate it the same amount of degrees again and render it out into an animation and so on. So that's why we want this. And the reason we're rotating our guy and not our camera is because we want a consistent lighting. So let's get to the scripting part. Yay! So here we are, and I'm going to tell you now that I have already made this script because it took a lot of trial and error, and this video would have been way too long if I brought you all along with me. But we'll write the code together. I'm going to look at what I have on the next screen, and I'll explain what happens as we go along. So first, let's just start by importing the things that we will need. So import OS for file reading and writing. Import BPY, which might be Blender Python library, something, I don't know. It's to be able to access Blender things using Python. So, and then from math, import radians, which we'll use to calculate the amount of degrees that we want to rotate our guy. And then from pill, which I hope you've installed by now, import image. Okay, so the first things, I usually don't use a lot of comments, but for this thing, I think I will need to because I'm not very home when it comes to Blender Python. Not Blender either, actually, but Python. So having these comments sort of helps me. So these are things that you shouldn't really need to change, but that are good to save. So I save 8 directions in an array, and I use this to label my images later so that I can put them together in the right order, right? So just write the different directions and write them in this order because we'll use it in our game later. It's not actually important that it's this order, it's just important that you use the same order, sorry, southeast, the same order in your program in Java or whatever you're using as you are rendering out to here. So I also have a 4 directions one, and later you're going to be able to choose which one you want. So it will have south, west, north, and east. My hands are all over the place. All right, so now let's find the rotator and save it to a variable so we can use it. So Blender Python thing, data, objects, and then find the rotator. So now we have it stored in here, and it's important that you have it, and everything that you want to be rotating should be parented to it. And then let's find the sprite size, which will be what we set in our rendering context, the output. So scenes, the name of your scene, and if you haven't renamed it, it's going to be named scene, just like that. And then say resolution X. All right, so we have our sprite size. Now we need the base path to wherever you want to store our sprite sheets that it will render for us. And if you use R, you don't need to worry about escaping backslashes. So just say R before your string. And I'm not sure what that means. You could probably Google it. So for me, I just put it on my D drive under sprite sheets, so it's easy to find. Let's image name, let's just call this guy for now. So this will prefix all of the animations later, the file name. So now say directions, and here you can decide if you want it to be, so these are, let's just keep them apart. So these are things to change, basically. So I'm gonna go with 8 directions, right? And now I'm gonna actually specify what animations we have. And I would have liked to somehow get this also from the scene, but I haven't figured out how to save my animations with a name and the keyframes, and then also locate them again from within the scripting. So if you have any ideas or tips, then please let me know. Write in the comments. But for now, we're just going to specify them inside of this script. So you're going to have to change this if you're doing something else. All right, so for us right now, all of these will be an object, and they will first have a name. So our first animation will be called stand. They have a start. Sorry, these need to be, they are strings. Start frame, the keys of the object are strings. So the start frame is 1 for this one. And then we have the end frame, which is 5. So our last frame is actually 4, but because we're going to use this in a loop, you can just write 5 here, right? Let's just duplicate that 2 times with Control D and say walk. And that start frame is 10. And the end frame, which again is not inclusive, will be 14. And then we have cough, which starts at 20 and ends at 22. Okay. So now let's get to some actual logic. So for animation index in range and the length of animations. So basically for every animation, stand, walk, cough. Let's just set some stuff up. Render paths is an empty array, and we're gonna save the path to the images that we render. so that we can pick them back up later. So start frame of the current animation. So animations, and let's get the one at animation index, right? And let's get the start frame. So just duplicate this 3 times, and let's get the end frame, which is the same but at end frame. And then let's get the name. Actually, let's call it animation name. Animation name, which is at name. Okay, and then let's just calculate the animation length, which is just end frame minus start frame. All right, now we have some variables to work with. So for every direction, for I in range, len directions. Okay, now we want to rotate our rotator in as many degrees as we can fit for the directions that we choose, and we do that this way. Let's just get the rotator and say that its rotation is 0, 0, and now radians minus, and then in parentheses, 360 divided by len of directions. So, and then also times I, depending on where we are in the directions. So this will calculate what rotation it must have for the direction that we are now in. Okay, now let's find the file that we want to save to. So say os.path.join, and then we say base path, which we specified up here. And then we need to give it a file name, so image name plus, and let's give it an underscore, and then let's give it whatever the direction that we're at, so it will end with S or SE or something. All right, and then say, let's just save that to render paths. Ooh, sorry, render path.append file. Okay, so we save this so we can open it up later and put them together. And the reason why we are saving these images to the disk is because I haven't found a way to keep them in a variable within the script. That would probably have been preferable, but I didn't find a way to do it. So we are saving all the images to the disk, and then we're actually opening them all up again and then putting them together. But that's what we would have done anyway if we were using the GIMP method. So this is how it will work for now. If you know of a way of storing it within the script and not saving it to the disk, then please tell me in the comments below. Let's move on. So now for every frame of our animation, let's set the current frame position in our scene. And we can do that like this. Scene frame current to the start frame of the animation that we're currently at, plus however long we've gone in the loop. Let's set the file to save to, which we do like this. Right? So we've built this this file path with this image name, and then we just append what frame we're at. And then let's do the rendering. Okay, and so what this write still true does is that Blender saves it to the image file that we specified, or the file name that we specified. Awesome, so now that's actually rendered, and we can go back twice, so outside of this loop, and here we can set our rotator back to its original position, so it doesn't end almost at the right position. Let's just clear it, the rotation. Okay, so now we've actually rendered out all of the files, all of the images that we are going to be using, and now we have to load them back up and put them together. But it's not that hard, and we'll do it now. So the sprite sheet will be a image.new, create a new image using our pillow plugin. Let's say RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha, will be the type of our image. And then we have to specify a width and a height. And so the width will be sprite size times animation length. And the height will be sprite size times the length of render paths. Okay, so now for I in range render paths, and then for J in range animation length, which is of course these two, we have to loop through and get all of the directions for the entire animation length. So for each frame now, let's find it in our file system, which is image path render paths at I plus string the J, cast it to string, and then let's get a file ending. So .png. So now hopefully it has found our image for us. So let's say image open, image path. Let's paste it into the sprite sheet at the right place, which will be sprite size times J and sprite size times I. And then delete the image that we had, because we don't need it anymore. And then finally, when we're out of both of those loops, let's just save the sprite sheet to base path, which we have. And I just, since I'm on Windows, I have a backtick. I don't know how it is on Mac. I don't know if it's different. And now I'm escaping, because now, well, I guess I could maybe do that. Let's try it. Let's see if it complains. Add animation name. I can already see that it complains. Why? Because this is green. Let's not. Let's just do what works. Okay, so escape that. Plus animation name plus the file ending, so PNG. And hopefully, if I wrote everything correctly now, if we run the script, I actually tried my old script once to see if it worked. And if we run this now, it should work. It did not work. So obviously we have done something wrong. Line 44, it said. So here, I had one parentheses too much. Okay, let's try it again. Still mad at unknown location. So I've done something wrong. I'm just gonna have a quick look. Yes, of course, yes. I didn't write len. So the length of render paths, I am sorry for that. In animation length. All right, so I have been, oh, look, now it's working. I'm sorry for this debacle. Okay, and here you can see it rendered everything out, and then it put it all back together. So it gave us our sprite sheets. And let's open it with something that isn't, actually, we could open it with this regular photo viewing app, but it won't look very nice with it. So it won't look like this in the game. I don't know if I have another, what is Paint 3D? Can I really use Paint 3D? Okay, so this is what it will look like. But our script is working, and it actually rendered the sprites for us. That is awesome. I am super happy that I don't have to do this manually because it takes a lot of time. And now we can iterate really quickly on our dude, and we can edit our animations and everything. It's just really nice. So I hope you find this script helpful, and I'm sorry for this little thing. All right, thank you for watching. Hej då!